Welcome to It's All About the Questions, where learning to ask the right questions can help you achieve lifelong success. Now, here to help you ask all the right questions is award-winning author, international speaker, and business strategist, Laura Stewart.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. So excited to be here, as I am every week. I think maybe I need to figure out a way to do this more because this is my favorite time of the week. I'm going to jump right in because I've got an amazing guest for you. You know, I don't often bring guests back on the show because there's so many amazing people, but I just had to, and he has an open invite on my show anytime. What happens when a former Navy SEAL sniper turned media CEO and New York Times best-selling author teaches business leaders how to make the best decisions under pressure? Well, what happens is Brandon Webb changes my life with his newest book with John David Mann, Total Focus, Make Better Decisions Under Pressure. I was fortunate to get an advance copy of this book, which comes out this month. This book needs to be on your bookshelf. If you want to go forward in your life, if you want to do something on a larger scale, or if you just want to have a life of excellence, whatever that means for you, get this book, Total Focus. Please welcome Brandon Webb back to the show.
Hey, Laura. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the kind words.
Well, you know, I've read every one of your books, and there's just something about this one. Let me open with a quote from you from the book. Like the spectrum of light, there is a spectrum of achievement, with plenty of people vibrating away, content as pigs in slop at the lower frequencies. I need to ask you, that sentence to me really seems to sum up you and your books and everything you're doing. Can you talk about that in terms of you and your philosophy of excellence in life?
Sure, and it's also, I think, important for everyone to define success for themselves, right? And success doesn't have to be having a ton of money. You know, success can mean many things. So I think it is up to people to define that for themselves. But also, I just see so many people these days in jobs or schools because society or their parents told them and to be and act a certain way and do certain things. And I'm talking people that I have a friend who's a brain surgeon and he's miserable. He makes tremendous amounts of money, but it's just not what he's passionate about. So I think, that quote kind of comes from a place and resonates with me is, look, so many people are just kind of content to go through life a certain way. And one of the, beautiful things that I've learned in the military and sadly losing a lot of friends is time, is our most precious asset. And we can't wait. Like, you can't wait because the years go by so fast. And if you want a really sobering experience, like pretend you live to 100 years of age and put those days on the back of a door because they'll fit on less than a full-size door, and it's a very humbling experience. And it shows you that our time on Earth is finite, and we really have. I just hope this book nudges them to do the things that they really love and are passionate about.
What was intriguing about the concepts in this book, Brandon, for me, was you're not talking about changing your entire life. What you're saying is whatever you're doing, do it with focus.
Yeah.
And that's something I know for myself I've struggled with lately. I've allowed other situations in my life to take my focus away and make it sort of such a soft focus that I didn't focus on anything. I just allowed my life to go in whatever direction it was going. And it was working, but at the same time it wasn't. In your book, you had these first two parts of the book that really started triggering me crazy. You talked about something called front sight focus and total situational awareness. In my book, I talk about horses and putting blinders on. But that's not really the same thing. What is it about snipers and the work that you do that enabled you to put together this book?
Well, I spent a lot of years as a sniper and then training snipers. And, one of the things that we're really good at as snipers is getting rid of all the external distractions and focusing on the task at hand. And so real, now being out and as an entrepreneur and looking at all the lessons that I've learned along the way, I looked at what are those principles that I taught and used as a sniper, and how am I applying that to my own life? And, to answer your question, it's funny because I read Tim Ferriss's latest book, Tools of Titans, and it really got me back into a morning routine and daily meditation, and I draw a lot of similarities between this like Zen meditation and what we used to do as snipers behind the rifle scope to really just focus in on the task at hand and not be bothered by anything else. And a lot of that comes from practice and mental visualization, and I'm a huge fan of visualization, and I'm pretty sure I tell the story in the book about the POW who was a prisoner in Vietnam for 4 years, and he was an avid golfer. I don't know if you remember that story.
I do remember that story, but my listeners might not. So
yeah, it's an incredible story. And it really proves how visualization works, and how it can work for all of us. And the short version is this Navy pilot was shot down, did over 4 years in a prisoner of war camp they called the Hanoi Hilton. It was just a terrible place. And how he dealt with it was he would play rounds of golf in his head at all his favorite courses. And so now, the war's ended. He comes home to San Diego, and there's a big naval hospital in San Diego called Balboa. And he's in the ambulance, and they're driving him to be checked out. And he looks like hell. He's skinny and he's malnourished, but he drives past the golf course, which is in the back gate of North Island in San Diego, and he says, "Look, you've got to stop this ambulance. I need to get out and play a round of golf." And they're looking at him like he's crazy. And
they're probably figuring out why he couldn't even stand up by himself and he's about to play 18 holes.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, "You're crazy." So he walks into the clubhouse, and they look at him like they want to throw him out because he just doesn't look like he belongs there. And he tells them who he is, and the guys in the room kind of tear up and take him to the pro shop and deck him out. And he says, "Look, I just want to shoot, a round of golf, 18 holes." And he finishes the game, and he shoots par,
That's insane. I've never shot par.
Having not picked up a golf club in years, and it's probably one of the worst, physically in shape he's ever been. And these guys are standing around him just kind of dumbstruck, and they're like, "Look, how is this possible?" And he says, "I've been playing perfect golf in my head for 4 years." And when we started teaching our students how to play their own version of golf in their head, and that was, imagine yourself in these scenarios where you're, potentially, there's distractions, gunfire, imagine yourself and visualize yourself in these situations and how you're going to deal with it and continue to focus on your target and perform flawlessly. And when we started teaching them, to practice perfect in their head, we started seeing students shooting perfect scores for the first time ever. And, the shooting tests we put these guys through are incredibly tough. And there's all sorts of variables like wind and environmental conditions like barometric pressure that affect, the flight path of a bullet at long distances. So, but, what really motivated me to write this book was to give an experience share. And I'm a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization and the New York City chapter, and it's a global organization of entrepreneurs. And when I moved to New York City, I joined the New York chapter, and I've gotten a tremendous amount out of EO. And, I meet once a month with my forum of 7 other business owners. And we have a rule in EO, and it's that you can't give advice to each other. We can only share from a place of experience. And, the philosophy there is every one of us has the ability to make our own decisions, and it's important to share experiences and take those experiences in. But, I can't possibly, know you well enough to know what's best for you. Like, only you know that and have the, intimate knowledge to make your own decisions. So the idea behind the book was to share my own experiences, and hopefully people come away from reading this book with a little more clarity to their own situation in life and business, and feel maybe a little bit more prepared and knowledgeable and able to take action and make their own decision.
Well, you certainly lay out an amazing plan in here. When we come back from the commercial break, we're going to talk about front sight focus and total situational awareness, which sound like they're on opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're really not. We'll be right back with more from Brandon Webb.
Success comes from not only what you know, but also who you know. Welcome back to It's All About the Questions with award-winning author Laura Stewart.
Brandon, I teased everybody saying we're going to talk about front sight focus and total situational awareness, which are 2 of the concepts you talk about in the book. They seem, on the surface, completely different. How can you have front sight focus and total situational awareness and be good at either one?
Sure. I mean, when you say it like that, I can see how people wouldn't be able to figure out how the 2 are related. But I see so many entrepreneurs that are just distracted. They're very talented, and they have the ability to grow their businesses to a certain point, and then they think they're going to go grow like 3 more on the side, and they realize that they can't push past maybe to get that business past what I usually see is about the $2 million in revenue mark. They're just kind of stuck because they're chasing all these other opportunities. And as running one business is challenging enough as opposed to going out and trying to start another one or chasing all these other opportunities. And when you are focused on when I made the decision, because I had this problem when I got out, I was chasing when I got out of the military, I was chasing all these different opportunities. The SEAL brand was being elevated in the media, and there was no shortage of people reaching out to me, wanting me to invest in companies, serve on boards of companies, and I was just chasing everything. And fortunately, I met a guy named Todd who owned a Porsche dismantler business, and he had hired me to do some shooting lessons. And he said, look, we got to know each other over a couple of weeks. He's like, man, you remind me a lot of myself. And before I made the decision to focus on my business, I was all over the place. And when I did focus, I started to have incredible success. And when I put it just resonated with me. And when I put that into practice, I really started to see things take off for me professionally, not only as an author, but as a business owner and entrepreneur. And I was talking to James Altucher, who's a friend of mine, and he wrote a book called The Power of No, and it's the same thing. Like the power of no is learning how to say no to opportunities that may be good opportunities, but they just may not be aligned with your core goal at the moment in business. And goal setting is a huge thing I talk about in Total Focus. It's so important to plan out your goal, because to get a team to work together, there has to be a common purpose and a common goal. If there's not, you just kind of see, teams just kind of, they're on that hamster treadmill. And you see this all over the place in politics and in business. But to get to your point on situational awareness, being focused on an opportunity, whether that's your career or your business, and really setting goals and driving towards them and being focused, it's also important to have situational awareness. And that means, what's going on outside of you. You can't be so focused that you aren't paying attention to, changes in market forces. I run a media and e-commerce business today, and if I hadn't paid attention to what was happening in the advertising industry, especially the digital space, and how disruptive Facebook was going to be to the industry, and they've massively disrupted the advertising industry, and now Google and Facebook have really the lion's share of the digital advertising spend. Facebook primarily because you can spend $1 on Facebook and make $4 or $5, and you can't do that with a TV ad or a print ad in a magazine the way you can on Facebook. And there's a lot of expertise and hard work that goes into making that money off a Facebook ad. But it's very possible we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on Facebook ads every month, and we do it at a profit. But it's stuff like that when I mean situational awareness, and I see it at the very small level, just people walking around New York City staring at their smartphones, not paying attention to what's going on around them. I'm just looking at them like, God, you're just, and it's a great example for people that go through life like that in their career, and they wake up one day and go, what just happened to me? Like, how did I not be prepared for this and see this coming? And that's really what I mean by, pay attention to be situationally aware and pay attention. I was stuck at JFK coming off a flight from Europe last summer, and there was an active shooter scare in Terminal 1, and nobody knew what was going on. And I really saw three kinds of people. The people that, and imagine this, I get off the plane and I get my passport stamp and I'm waiting for my bag, and police run and scream into the baggage area and are yelling at people that there's an active shooter and that they should run for their lives. And there's 400 plus people in passport control, fresh off of these planes from Germany and France, where recently they had their own terrorist attacks, and it was complete chaos. And there was a person that closed their eyes, stayed put, and just started crying, and the other persons were panicking, running around like crazy. And then there were the people that were actually taking stock of the situation and making decisions. And thankfully I was in that category, but it was very interesting just to see how people reacted to that scenario. And the people who were situationally aware are the ones that are going to survive that type of situation. And it's an extreme example, but it was something that happened to me.
And I'm sure while you were in combat, that happened a lot. You had to focus on your goal, which was intelligence gathering, preventing other people from being killed, preventing what might happen in the future, focus down that site or whatever you were doing not being found. But if you weren't aware of what was happening around you, you could end up dying as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an extreme example, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then, in business, like I said, we saw, to put it in simple terms, you were running a digital publishing company. Traditionally, like television and magazines, you make money off advertising revenue. And I saw the advertising industry was changing, and we were heavily reliant on advertising dollars. And I saw it, dark clouds on the horizon, and started making changes and said, you know what, we have really good content. Let's charge a subscription, a small fee to access our news site, which is a sofrep.com. It's a veteran-run news site. And let's, where else can we charge a small subscription fee for our content that's original and quality, and hedge against this change in advertising, as well as what can we do what are other ways we can make money off our audience and take care of our audience. And we said, you know what, they're asking us what equipment and gear to buy, whether it's, dads asking about what tent is the best tent because they're taking their family camping, or
okay, and we're going to have to go to national news in just a few seconds. I want to talk about that more when we come back. We're here with Brandon Webb talking about total focus, how to make better decisions under pressure. And we'll be right back to talk about embracing the suck. For those of you just joining us live on iHeartRadio, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're here talking with Brandon Webb, former Navy SEAL sniper turned CEO of an media empire. And his latest book, Total Focus, Make Better Decisions Under Pressure, with John David Mann. And for those of you on the podcast, this was instantaneous since I cut out all the commercials. So, Brandon, before the break, we were talking about this whole concept of front sight focus and total situational awareness. And just, I know you want to pull your thoughts together on that.
I was just, sharing and my experience of how we started the e-commerce division of the company. It was because we saw the changing landscape in advertising, and we listened to our customers who were asking us advice on equipment to buy. So we ended up starting a monthly box for men. Basically, like, imagine if James Bond is picking cool gadgets and sending them to you in a box every month, and that's been a huge business for us in a relatively short period of time. So it's so important to kind of keep that awareness about you, whether it's your career or your business, because if things are going well and you're not paying attention and adjusting, it's like floating down the river rapids, and you can kind of have a paddle on the water, but if you're not looking for what's coming ahead, you could get flipped over. And so it's really important to pay attention. And that's what I talk about in that piece there on situational awareness.
You talking later in the book about something that you do every year, and I think it ties with this. I know I want to talk about embracing the suck, because to me that was I don't know why it makes me laugh, but it's so powerful at the same time. You every year create a vision theme for your company, where you want to go based on your goals, your vision, your values. You're very clear on your company values, which is something that everybody needs to put together for their business and for themselves personally. How does that vision theme come together, and why do you think that's so important? How does somebody go about even creating a vision and a theme on it for the year, keeping in mind your ideas of situational awareness and stuff?
Yeah, it's one of the, if not the most important things we can do in our lives is create a vision for ourselves. Like, where do we want to go in life? And I do it with my children as well. Every Christmas, we sit down and I make them write it out. Because if you don't have that plan, you're just drifting through life. And so, in my business, every year I get input from all of I have a very flat org chart, but I get the directors to give me their input on where they want to take their piece of the business for the next year. And I use that to create this overall vision statement. And at our annual strategy meeting, I announce it and say, look, this is our vision for the next year, and this is how we're going to get there. And I let them participate in it because I think it's important. And when you have that singular vision and goal for the year, and it's important for it to be understandable and simple, but everyone can rally around that. And again, I see the lack of it all over the place. A very close to the heart example to me is Afghanistan. Like, as a country, America lost its way in Afghanistan. We have not had a clear strategic objective in Afghanistan. And when you look at the last 10 years, it's a complete disaster. Billions of dollars wasted, thousands of lives lost for what? And what, are we ultimately going to accomplish there? And that's just one example. And bringing it back. So it's just so important for people to have that plan, like where they're going to go for that year. And, it's not a fad. It's not, I'm going to make a New Year's resolution. This is like where you want to go. And I break it down personally. I have one for myself as well. And I talk about my vision for my business, my personal life, like what's important to me this year personally. And my grandparents are in their 90s, and it was really important that I spend time with them this year. And I made sure that was on my vision statement, and I accomplished that. I did 2 really incredible trips to see my grandparents. And
so can you explain? Give us some more examples. Let's say.
Sure. So, for me personally, I right about November, I go away for a couple of days and I create my vision statement for the next year, and I put down what I want to accomplish in business, personal, and I have a family category too, like how I want to be a better parent. And I put things down that are actionable and measurable, and you have to be specific. So if it's on the family side, it's take my daughter to Europe for our annual father-daughter trip, and actually plan it out. And then I fill in these very specific things that I want to accomplish, and then I track it with. I have an accountability partner, and it could be a friend, a family member. I check in with my COO on our business goals monthly, and for my personal goals, I use an EO form mate of mine who's actually featured in the book, Solomon. He started a frozen yogurt chain called 16 Handles. It originally started in New York. Now he's all over the place. But Solomon and I meet for breakfast at 8 a.m. On the east side of New York, and we grill each other and hold each other accountable. So the accountability piece is important as well. But it's just so important to have a clear idea of where you're going, and I use the kind of river. If you imagine life as a river, and are you just going to hop in a boat and let the current take you wherever, or are you going to try and put an oar in the water and at least set your own direction? Because nothing is perfect. Life throws us a tremendous amount of adversity, and you and I both have experienced a lot of adversity, and that's just life. And when I get into the part about embracing the suck in the book, you can look at the cards you've been dealt and moan and groan about it, or you can say, look, this is the hand I've been dealt. What lessons have I learned, and what can I do with this to turn it into a positive? Because when you adopt that healthy attitude of embracing the suck, and it's really embracing adversity, your attitude completely changes on how you look at things. And I see my friends, and they just start complaining, and they talk about all those negative things. I'm like, that just serves no purpose. Like, let's figure out how we can use this situation to our advantage. And, you and I were talking before the show, and I had a situation recently. I'm an author. You put yourself out there, inevitably you're going to get people that are going to take cheap shots at you. And I had a former teammate saying really bad things about me on social media, and it didn't affect me, but my kid's mom called me and says, "Hey, look, our daughter read this stuff. Can you talk to her?" And that really got to me.
I bet.
And affected me. My 13-year-old daughter is, reading this on social media, and so I just thought about it, and I got over the angry part really quick and said, you know what? I'm going to use this as a really powerful learning lesson for my kids to show them, look, this is a life lesson here. When you are doing good things and out achieving your goals in life, you're always going to have people that will say and do things, and you've got to take the high road. And so I had this really neat conversation with my daughter about it, and I think she walked away from it. I mean, she's about to be a high schooler, and it's a tough world out there.
Yeah, especially for kids with social media. There's so much bullying and everything. That story is so powerful for me because I was recently interviewed by Ursula Menges for her Double Your Sales podcast, and the conversation went to this whole idea of imposter syndrome. And even though I ran a 7-figure company and, but I felt like a failure after everything. And what hit me was I was afraid to step out because I was afraid that somebody may say something online or put me down. And if I put myself out there, that, I'm exposed and people could say things. And Peter Hoppenfeld, who's my attorney and a strategist and a friend, he said one thing to me when I was writing my book. He said, Laura, as long as you tell the truth and you live in truth, then you don't have to, then that can't affect you. It's if you put yourself out there in a way that's not truth, that goes against your own beliefs and you're being inauthentic, that's when that's a problem. And it stuck with me. And that's, I think, what your story is saying as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all deal with that. You and I maybe on a little bit different level, as an author, and when you put yourself out in the media, I think it comes in a lot more frequently. But I told a story in the book about my friend Mark Harmon, the actor.
I love that story, and I want you to tell that when we come back from this commercial break, and say hi to your puppy for me. And we'll be right back with more from Brandon Webb. So, Brandon, Mark Harmon.
Yeah, amazing human being. And Mark, I was starting to have, as you mentioned earlier, you stick yourself out there, people are starting to say things, and Mark just pulled me aside. He's like, this happens to everybody who has some success, and you just have to remember that these people that are saying these things they're just not in a good place in their life. Like, nobody who's happy and successful will take time out to tear other people down. So it was just an important lesson for me, and a lesson I tell the story in detail in the book about that conversation with Mark. But I think it's just important for people to know that that even more important that we learn. I talk about self-talk and total focus and how we talk to ourselves, and really choosing to adopt a positive mindset is incredibly important in everything we do in life.
You say in the book, excellence is not about inborn talent or natural skills. Excellence is purely a state of mind.
Absolutely. It's a state of mind and a habit that we can develop over time. And it's up to us to make the choice inside of us. And so I really, I I'm excited about this book because it's my first foray into the kind of business self-help category, but I'm really looking forward to people's reactions, and it was nice to, before the show to hear you talk about the book and how it made an impact.
Well, what's fascinating is you say it's your first foray into that, but yet every book you've written, to me, felt like it was leading up to this one.
Yeah, no, it felt like that naturally for me. Like this just seemed like the book to write for me. And, and I think about, I've been an entrepreneur now, I think this year, a little bit longer than I was a Navy SEAL. And so it's, for me, just a part of my personal growth and as a leader and an entrepreneur and CEO. So I just wanted to share it with people, and I hope they walk away and learn how to make better decisions under pressure and a lot more.
One of the reason I started this show was to help people learn to ask the right questions and of the right people. And not everybody has access to the people that I've access to, although they could. All they have to do is ask, right? You just need to approach people. You need to read. You and I are both avid readers. I can easily read a book every couple of days because I love reading that much. You mention in the book gaining a larger perspective, and that's what I hope that this show does. This is what people tell me it does. It helps them gain that larger perspective. You being on the show is not a normal thing for people to hear. You've failed, you've succeeded, you've saved lives, you put yourself on the front line, but here you are willing to expose everything. I mean, at the end of the book, I loved this, by the way, you shared your onboarding letter that you give to every new employee. Why?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like you said earlier, when you live your truth and you have nothing to hide. I really, that letter was a combination of, personal experience. I had adapted the offer of money in there because Zappos would put people through training and offer them $5,000 to leave the company or stay. And I just thought that was, having that financial incentive was a real powerful litmus test on, do you still want to be a part of this team? And it was just, again, I wanted, being a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization, we're all about being vulnerable and truthful and honest and open. And to me, that letter was something I just wanted to share with the readers and let them see, like, look, this is something I write to every person that comes on board to my team. And back to your other point, which I think is really important, is access to people, because people always say, I just can't get a hold of this person. And again, James Altucher and I were talking about this, and when you approach people, you have to think about how you can also add value, not just take away. And I remember James telling me when he was trying to get in front of some very powerful people, even Warren Buffett, that he would think, what can I add that I'm doing that can add value to their life? And he would write these long emails and whether it's giving stock tips, because he was into finance, but he was just really conscientious about the exchange of value. And I think people need to realize that when they're asking for someone's time, that they do need to realize, like, there is this value exchange that happens, and how can they show up and what value can they offer this other person if they're going to make a request. Because we have to surround ourselves with positive people that are doing better than ourselves, and in places where we want to go, because you adapt to your environment and you want to change your environment sometimes if necessary, but put yourself into those environments where people are doing and producing things that are aligned with your own goals and values.
It's such a beautiful way to wrap up the show, is that whole idea of the values. Last thought, actually, let's make sure everybody knows where to get the book and how to reach out to you.
Sure. So the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Total Focus, they can go to my author website, BrandonTylerWebb.com. I keep all my social media on there, and I'm very active on Instagram and Facebook. But Brandon Tyler Webb, you can find all my books on there, and everywhere books are sold, you'll find Total Focus.
Okay, and it's Total Focus, Make Better Decisions Under Pressure. Brandon Webb and John David Mann, who I'm going to have John on next week.
He's awesome. John is amazing.
I love him, and we're going to talk about how a cellist and a sniper got together to write these amazing books. Last thought you'd like to leave my audience with?
I would just say, have that vision statement. Take time. If you can't give yourself time, then you've got a serious problem. But take that time to write a vision statement and put thought into where you want to be personally, professionally, and with your friends and family, because it's a very powerful tool.
And after you write that statement, don't forget to keep that situational awareness, because you may need to change it.
Absolutely. But realize that life isn't perfect. You're going to find yourself in adverse situations, and the mindset of a champion is someone that looks at adversity as an opportunity to learn and grow.
I love that. That's such a perfect way to close out the show. So my last thoughts on this book for everybody is, I'm all about the right questions. This book, in 7 principles, really has helped me, just in reading it in prep for the interview, to think about what is my vision, what is my front sight focus, what do I want to be doing, and then how am I going to get there, creating out those goals, taking through those steps, and getting rid of a lot of extraneous things. So I want everybody to be thinking about that. There's 7 amazing principles in this book. At the end of the day, you need to surround yourself with the right people. You need to have a vision. You need to have a plan. So if you need an accountability partner, tweet it out to me. You can even tag Brandon on social media. Let us know what your vision is. We're here to support you. Have the best life you can possibly have. And remember, everybody, the right questions truly can change your life. So what are you asking today? Have a great day, everyone.
You've been listening to It's All About the Questions, starring Laura Stewart. Connect with Laura at it'sallaboutthequestions.com and download a free workbook that will help you ask better questions starting today.